Hello everybody, welcome to the I Am IT Geek YouTube channel. My name is Shabazz Dart, and as ever, I am the IT Geek. As you can see, I'm back in my more familiar surroundings in my office, in my little den, after a bit of a roller coaster couple of weeks, a lot of traveling. The last time you probably saw me, I was at NerdioCon 2023, which is Nerdio's sort of flagship event of the year. And it was amazing. It was in Mexico, Cancun. You've probably seen the diaries, and you'll probably see the final sort of recap diary, which I've just not had time to drop yet, but you'll be seeing that soon, if not already as well. So yeah, I'm back, and we're back with the back to the AZ 700 series. We're on the final module now. During my time away, you probably saw the module 3 last episode, which was Azure Traffic Manager came out, and now we're moving on to module 4. So we're still, this is still this is the final module of designing and implementing Microsoft Azure Network Solutions, which is the AZ 700 exam. Still myself and Mohammed Sajid. So Mohammed Sajid is going to do the labs. I'm going to do the theory as normal. I said we're starting module 4. It's not as big a topic as the other ones. It's a smaller sort of 5 to 10% topic, and we're gonna cover again a lot of different content, specifically around sort of. We're going to start off with private endpoints and private link services. So let's get started with this episode. So as I mentioned, we are now back to the AZ 700 series. And specifically, we're now in Module 4, which is design and implement private access to Azure services. So today's episode, this is part 1 of designing and implement Azure Private Link services and private endpoints. So we're going to talk about planning an Azure Private Link service first of all, looking at integrating a private link service with DNS, and then we're going to let Mohammed Sajid show us how to create an Azure Private Link service rather than talk about it, okay? So, when we talk about planning an Azure Private Link service, a private link service is the reference to your own service that is sort of powered by your Azure Private Link. Your service that is runs behind an Azure standard load balancer, and it can enable that private link access to us consumers, and then in turn to your service. You access it essentially privately from your own sort of internal VNets. And as I mentioned, you configure your application to run behind. It has to be a standard load balancer, okay, in your virtual network. So just be careful of that, because that could be a gotcha in the exam. It has to be a standard load balancer. You can configure your application to run behind standard load balancer, but in your load balancer selection process, choose the front end IP configuration where you want to receive the traffic. And then you choose a subnet for your NAT IP address for the private link service as well. And speaking of those private, the NAT IP configuration, it's recommended that you have at least 8 NAT IP addresses available in that subnet. So again, that could be another gotcha in the exam. So make sure you remember that number 8. Recommend you have number 8 NAT IP address configurations. And finally, on this slide, Azure Private Link Service is only supported on a standard load balancer as well. Again, I keep on reiterating that because I feel like it could be a bit of a gotcha in the exam. So it's got that full integration with standard load balancer. Just sticking on this topic, so private link service can be accessed from approved private endpoints in any public region. The private endpoint can be reached from the same sort of virtual network and regionally peered virtual networks. The private endpoint can be reached from globally peered virtual networks as well, and on premises using sort of private site-to-site VPN or an express route connection. When you create a private link service, a network interface is created for the life cycle of that resource. And this interface, it's not manageable by the customer, so it's a back-end network interface that managed by Azure, so you don't see it as a consumer or the user. The private link service must be deployed in the same region as your virtual network and your standard load balancer as well. So you can't have it in, another region for your VNet, even if you've got a peer, and it has to be in the same region. Multiple private link services can be created on the same standard load balancer using different front-end IP configurations. There are limits to the number of private link services you can create per standard load balancer and per subscription. finally on this topic, private link service can have more than one NAT IP configuration linked to it. As I mentioned, the recommendation is 8. Choosing more than one NAT IP configuration can help the service providers to scale. Today, service providers can assign up to 8 NAT IP addresses, as we mentioned, for site private link. It is recommended that you have 8. With each NAT IP address, you can assign more ports for your sort of TCP connections. Hence, you can scale out. After you add the multiple NAT IP addresses to a private link service, you can delete the NAT IP addresses. This restriction is in place to ensure that active connections are not impacted while deleting those NAT IP addresses. So let's move on to talk about integration with private link services and DNS before I hand over to Mohammed Sajid. So a private DNS zone, they're typically hosted centrally in the same as your subscription where the sort of hub VNets are deployed. You create a private DNS zone in the central connectivity subscription for the supported private link services. And in addition to the private DNS zones, you also need to create a set of custom Azure policy definitions. And these definitions enforce the use of private endpoints and automate creating those DNS records in the DNS zone that you create. A policy definition is deployed, and you obviously assign policies at the desired scope in your sort of management group hierarchy. You need to ensure that the policy assignments target the Azure subscriptions used to deploy the past services with private endpoint access exclusively. So a bit of an overview there of the sort of private link service, and I'm going to hand over to Mohammed Sajid now, who is going to do us a really interesting demo on creating Azure Private Link service. Over to you, Saj.
Thank you, Shabazz. Hi, everyone. So in this quick demo, we're going to take a look at private link service. So if you're going to create private link, either search for private link or navigate to private link on the shortcut if you already navigated there previously. On the private links, you've got the options to create a private endpoint or create private link service, and you can do the same on the left hand menu here. So just select create private link service. And the basics page, fill out your subscription, your resource group. So we'll stick with our demo resource group, give it a name. And we'll stick it with our imaginative AZ700 demo private link service 001 naming convention. Regions UK South is where we're creating everything as part of these demos. In your outbound settings, select load balancer 700, select the IP address. We don't have one. We look at the one that we already created in a moment. Source NAT virtual network and the source NAT subnet. So we already selected this particular network that's available. We've got IP addresses available that are compatible with this particular subnet. Enable TCP proxy v2. Default is no, so we'll leave it as part of this demo. And configure private IP address settings, dynamic or static. So we'll leave it as dynamic as part of this demo. Then you've got access security and tags. So if we just exit out of here, look at the one that we already deployed, because it takes a little while to deploy it. So if you look at private link service, this is one that we already deployed. So as part of the options I was asking you, so define your resource group, define your location, UK South, your subscription, create an alias for you, so NAT subnet, and the IP address within that is 10.1.0.8, which was in the range that we were just looking at. Load balancer, so we are using a particular load balancer. If you want to look at load balancing, look at the sections on load balancing as part of the AZ700 series. Load balancer front end IP address. So I created this dedicated IP address as part of this demo previously, so we can actually deploy this setup on a rule. And that will then create this private link service for you as part of the private link service. You've got your NAT configuration. And again, to look at source NAT IP address, enable TCP proxy, private IP address settings, dynamic or static. So we left it as the default, which was dynamic. Look at access security. You have the option of role-based access control, restricted subscriptions, or anyone with your alias. This is the least restrictive. This is the most restrictive. So by default, we left it as the most restrictive. And you can review that on the properties and give you additional information on the properties, the ID, the name, the location, tag values. And that's how you create a private link service. It takes a while to deploy. It can take up to 5 minutes, so I've pre-deployed this, and so we can have a quick look at it as part of this demo. Thank you for watching. Back to you, Shabazz.
Thanks, Saj. Again, as always, another really informative lab by Mum Sajid. I'm going to put the link to the GitHub labs in the description, and they'll have all the links to all the labs that, not just what Mohammed Sajid has gone through, maybe some that he might not have covered, and give it a bit more detail. I can't recommend enough. You need to do the labs for this exam. It's very scenario based, and you need to have experienced how to do all this stuff before actually doing it yourself. So make sure you do cover the labs and follow it in your own time if you're not following along with Mohammed Sajid. So yeah, this is just kicked off module 4 now. So this is part 1. This is going to be a 2-part topic. So make sure you catch that next episode. Thank you for watching, and again, please reach out to me on Mohammed Sajid. I'm really overwhelmed by the support I've had with this series, and in general on my YouTube channel. Almost at 2,000 subscribers now, which is really, really, I really appreciate it. So thank you very much. And so keep an eye out for other topics as well. I've got big plans this year for this channel. I've got a lot more content coming out. Got some book reviews I'm working on at the moment coming out soon as well. So yeah, thank you everybody for watching, and until next time, goodbye.